It's January and we are already in speculate. Oh, wait, no, it's not speculation season. Nope, it's guessing season. We are in the absolute dig to the bottom and scrape together some stuff to talk about mode. And we just kind of thought this would be something fun to do. Obviously, we dedicate a lot of our time talking about speculation maps in the spring. And once Horror Night Nightmares gets kind of going on that front, we can kind of discuss that. But it's obviously still very early on in the, quote unquote speculation mode. So we figured, what the hell? Let's put out a map. Let's do something ourselves. But we were just guessing. We've done a couple episodes. We did early, way too early predictions. We've done kind of code name breakdown stuff that we talked about last week. So if you missed that and all the random code names that have found their way to the internet, we kind of tried to sleuth our way through that last week. And none of the stuff necessarily is 100%. It doesn't always correlate one way or the other. But we figured, let's do a guessing map. This map portrays some of our kind of wants, our hopes, and just a little bit of realism. We didn't go too far-fetched on this. We didn't, we're not putting crazy stuff that we think, could be the ultimate event. We're doing it from a semi-realistic approach, stuff that obviously has sort of been talked about, and then we start to look at other little cues, whether that's anniversaries, whether that's upcoming releases. None of this stuff directly correlates whether a property comes to the event, but in this stage of the game, that's all we have to work with. So that's what we're going to kind of go off of. So we're going to present 10 houses that we think has a pretty good chance at being there this year at this event. So before we dive into that fun stuff, let me crack my beer open, because I got to kill my Christmas beers before I can start getting the fun local beer again. I feel like I splurge during the fall on my shipyards, and then as soon as that stuff kind of gets finished off, I really dive into the Sam Winter packs and stuff like that, and the variety packs. So once I finish all this, it's not necessarily a macro. Sam Adams is no macro, but they still kind of call themselves an independent brewer.
They are,
but
they're an independent brewer,
which is crazy, because you don't think
you wouldn't think so, because you can get it everywhere. But yeah, they're still considered independent, which is kind of cool. I like Sam. Sam's my favorite big independent. So it's kind of like fun. Them, Sierra Nevada, Yingling. Like, they're like massively well-known independent brewers. They're huge. Like, just because you're independent doesn't mean you can't be a macro independent, which is kind of what I would consider them, as like a macro independent. But yeah, it's basically, it's all kind of weird anyways. It just means that they're not owned by two of the three of the big macro Pilsner brewers. Like, Anheuser-Busch doesn't own them, or whoever else.
Yeah,
Miller, or whatever the hell.
They haven't sold out yet.
Right. Never know, eventually, but
at some point,
Sam Adams is good stuff. But I'm over here drinking my macro pills, so I can't say shit.
There we go. Well, you heard the voice. Seamus is back. We had a long Christmas.
Yeah, I'm
break.
Sorry, everybody. I didn't leave permanently yet.
No, yet. What the hell?
Well, I don't know. People might be calling for it. They'd be like, "Oh, well, you don't really need that third voice." No, I'm just joking. No. I think, but yeah, I wasn't here last week. I'm sorry, everybody. I wasn't here the week before either. Because holidays. I don't think we were here. Fucking insane.
Yeah, well, it's good old Christmas, good old New Year's. It's good to take a little refresh. It's good to take a break. We took our own 2-week break ourselves, so you didn't really miss too much. We were doing our own thing, and Jamie is MIA today. She is doing some
homework,
research, and homework for, I'm sure most of the listeners know, but she also writes for a horror blog, Macabre Daily. So if
she's much more talented than the two of us.
Yeah, no,
she's got a million other things going on. We're just kind of like the two schlubs that have to keep this thing running.
We're like, hey, it's Thursday night at 9:00. We're going to talk about Halloween Horror Nights.
Right,
please.
Exactly.
Only 11 more months, please. But yeah, so she's doing some homework and research for her other writing gig for Macabre Daily. So if you don't follow them, check them out. They got a lot of cool horror stuff, and she's got some cool interviews lined up. So definitely keep your eye out for her. So this is old school for us. We're kicking it old school. So this is old Seamus and Nick just shooting the shit about what we think could realistically be at Horror Nights 33. So I already kind of gave y'all the the precursor to this. Obviously, none of this is based off of factual information. We'll kind of one by one go through these properties. I even put them in locations for you. Not much thought went behind that other than what has been there in previous years and stuff like that. But we'll kind of dissect this A through what are these J's, A through J's, and then we will also release this map for you probably later on Friday or Saturday if you want a visual of it. And who knows? Let's see if we can get something right over here, because I feel like last couple times we've nailed one or two things. If we get one thing right, I'll be happy. That's really all I'm looking for, is just one thing right on this map. But let's see. You got the do you have the map in front of you?
I do now.
Yeah. All right. So why don't you can kick it off, because this is one that I agreed with you on, but this was kind of a little bit more at the forefront of your brain.
Well, don't let him be humble. I mean, this is the only one I gave him, so we're going mostly off what he wants. But
I set you up for the layup,
so it's fine. No, yeah, I'll start off. And the thing is like I actually haven't even. Well, we kind of gave it away. This is actually we're thinking a sequel house here, and it's a sequel to a house that I didn't get to do. But we're gonna start the event off with Slaughter Cinema Part 2, or Part 2 for those who don't speak French. I think it's French. Yeah, right. So I actually I never got to do Slaughter Cinema, but everything I've ever been told about it is it seems like it's a house that's right up my alley. Being a film nut and a film fan, and enjoying like that campy horror B movie stuff that we grew up watching. So it seems like it was a house that was kind of right up my alley. So I desperately wanted them to bring this back in some capacity. So doing a sequel, I think, would make a lot of sense. We did kind of think that maybe it was a possibility last year, especially with some of like the more movie related hints. So we kind of, I feel like it was kind of, I don't want to say like speculated, but it was definitely something that a lot of people felt like was a possibility that they were bringing it back. And obviously they didn't, but so I don't know exactly all of the various houses, the various movies that were in the first one, but I feel like they could probably do a sequel and pull a number of different movies this time. Maybe even doing like sequels to the movies that were in the original house, or maybe one or two, just kind of like call back to it or tie back to it. Because this one wasn't like actual movie properties. This was like fake.
It was all movies, original concepts. Yeah.
Right. And this is where Yeti came from too. So there is a solid chance we could maybe get a Yeti reference in this. And maybe instead of doing necessarily a full Yeti house, you could see like, Yeti going back, Yeti back to its roots or something like that, or Yeti, back to basics or something along those lines. But I think this would be like a fun sequel that they haven't done yet. They probably should. So I don't know. You probably can speak to it better than I can because you've seen it, but
thankfully I have. Yeah. I think this was during my years of maybe not living here. I've lived here long enough now that I'm forgetting which years I
wasn't it 2018 though? I thought it was 2018.
It was at 28. It was 28. So I was down here. I was living down here.
I was here too. I had just moved in. And I was like, I probably shouldn't be spending $300 on a park ticket. But plus, we weren't. When we first moved here, I wasn't a Universal annual pass holder either. So that kind of prevented me from doing. I don't say prevented me, but it was one of those things where it's like I wasn't actively going to Universal yet.
Yeah,
it wasn't until a year later that the move. Yeah, with the move, and we were Disney pass holders like the weekend we moved in, so that quickly changed. It switched, but
right to the mouse.
But I didn't mean to digress. Continue.
Yeah, I think people will be very mad if we get Yetis again. I think that would be a very big favoritism towards the Yetis. I do not disagree with that. I love those guys, but I do think that that aspect can take a little bit of a halt. But I think this is because the way they built this out as like that compilation-y mock-up of multiple originals, it lends itself easily to an event that doesn't have an anniversary, doesn't have, 31 was kind of hand in hand with Halloween, so it doesn't have any overall arc right now. So I think it's easy to slip in. Some of the movies they had was the what was it? The Amazon Cannibals from Planet Hell, Cult of the Beast Baby, Pumpkin Guts, Barber Chop, Shitty's Kids, and there's some other in there, but just that crazy 70s, maybe 60s style camp. I think it would be fun to bring this back almost the way they do with like the Vamps, how they just did it as a different era. I'd love to see it as like 90s slashery kind of things. And if we don't get, we have a slasher on our list, but that one is a pretty long shot, I'd say. But if they did a Slaughter Cinema of slashers and made up their own 5 or 6 different slashers in this style, I think that would help out a lot.
Yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, it was obviously a success. It drew Yeti into multiple different iterations. This also was rumored to an extent last year. People were talking about the Devil Dogs. I think that was on the Spec Map 1. I'm not sure what that translated into. That might have been Yeti. Maybe they thought, they picked just a different property from the house itself. So there is a possibility that this was being talked about, or it was a possibility that just was misconstrued information that turned into Yeti. But whether or not any of that was true or not, I think this would be a fun year to bring another fan favorite back. They've kind of continuously dug into their past recently and brought these things back. We had Vamp last year. We had Yeti last year. We had what else was there? There was another continuation of sorts last year, I think, that, or maybe I'm just making up. But either way, they've been
I'm
digging.
trying to think
I was thinking of Oddfellow. He was a part of HHN history, and they just kind of brought him back, dusted him off, and gave him a new little shtick. But I do think that it's tough because we don't really have on our list many first time originals. We don't really have concepts in our head, and we're not going to just throw darts at the board. But every year there are things that are just completely new. Darkest Deal, Blood Moon, stuff like that. That is just like a complete non-sequel thing. So obviously there's going to be 2 or 3 of those this year, combined with maybe a continuation of 1 or 2, and then some IPs 4 and 5, and that's how you get your 10. So we have one kind of original thing that was semi-original, semi-not, but we'll kind of get to that at that point. But yeah, Slaughter Cinema, it's been since 28. It's been a handful of years. I know it's a crowd favorite. I know that people have been asking for it, so I'd be curious if they would stay away from it because Yeti was last year and it was kind of in the same vein, sort of the same family. But I think it would be fun just to bring a whole compilation house in that sense back.
Yeah, and I think it's the only compilation house we have on the map. So
yeah,
I we could use at least one.
Yeah, that's always a good, a good route to go because it does give you a little bit extra variety. It almost feels like that Blumhouse compilation 2 years ago. It just felt like 2 houses.
Right. Like you're getting more house for your buck.
Yeah.
More bang for your buck, if you will.
And we put that at location A, which was the location for Blood Moon. You get a little sound stage. You get
up front.
A good queue. It seems like that's where they're putting some of those originals. The previous year it was supposed to be Evil Dead Rise. We all know what happened with Hellblock Horror, but it does seem to be that the last 2 years it was an original held up there. So it has the queue line for an IP, but for whatever reason they've kind of gone that original route so far. All right, here's our slasher. Kind of a shocker. We have this up in B where Exorcist was. Now, there's some reasons for it, and then there's many other reasons why I think it would not happen. But I do think, I wouldn't be too surprised. And that's Friday the 13th, bringing Jason back to the event. Now, obviously the rights are an issue.
Wonky.
Supposedly they have been settled because that series is coming to Peacock, Camp Crystal Lake, around 2024. I think, the fall of 24 is when they're sort of aiming. But Friday the 13th,
Peacock again.
Yeah, and we have that Peacock. We have the Peacock connection. They had Peacock Bar. It is their property.
Yeah, I mean, generally, obviously Peacock is NBC, so it kind of makes sense, and they generally do kind of pull from their own service, which is why we've got a couple things on here that might be related to Peacock in some way.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, if they've got a show coming to Peacock, I can see why.
No, it is weird. The rights have been ironed out, but supposedly the show is like a prequel, so it's kind of a young Jason before Jason kind of thing. I don't know how true that is.
Preteen Jason.
I don't think this has been filmed yet. I don't believe they've started.
Jason in high school.
Yeah, exactay. Awkward Jason, emo Jason,
awkward Jason with pimples and girl problems.
Sad boy Jason. Jeez. Yeah, he's just getting bullied for the whole house. Every room is just a different bully picking on him. But yeah, I don't know exactly what
from the hockey team. Sorry, I'll stop.
Cut from the hockey team. It's like, I don't need my mask. I haven't had it in 2 movies. It took me 2 movies to find this goddamn thing.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I swear I'm done.
You gotta get them all out. It's been a minute.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while. It's been building up in me like you wouldn't believe. I'm backed up.
Yeah, all clogged up. But yeah, so this is Brian Fuller. He previously worked on other projects like Hannibal and Star Trek. He's back. He's going to collaborate with A24 and Peacock, and he's writing and creating this prequel series with Stephen Dotson, who is from An Angry Man. And he is set to write, direct, and executive produce. Now, Victor Miller, who wrote the original Friday the 13th film, is supposedly back writing this, and there's additional producers attached to this as well. But the other rumor is that they may be bringing back Tom Savini to work on this. Should be really fun. So they got the original crew. Yeah, they have like the original crew. But like I said, it's a prequel series that leads up to the events that took place in the 1980 film. So, who's to say what's going to be in it, what's not? But they could bend the rules if it's their own thing. I don't know if the film rights are the same as licensing rights. Could you do a Camp Chris Blake house with a full-on Jason in it?
Yeah, I mean, didn't we say that like Cunningham's only got the rights to the name, right? Like he's only got the rights to the Friday the 13th, like
it's the series name and adult Jason. So that's why the original writer, he has the rights to everything in the very first movie. So the setting, the Jason's mother, and young Jason.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird how they make it work. I mean, I'm interested to see what the show turns out to be because, like, young Jason, like, I don't know how, like, where does the line kind of exist, and when do they cross it, and when they didn't, when don't they cross the line? Because like, it could be very, young Jason, like, could be very much Jason. So I don't know. I'm interested to see kind of how it goes because. The show, I mean, again, this obviously isn't about the show specifically, but we're talking about it, so
yeah.
I worry. I worry that it's not gonna have the same essence. And my washing machine stopped. If you can hear that, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's gonna have the same. I'm trying to think of the word.
Like impact or
no, I mean I just don't know if it's going to have the same spirit as the movies did, because obviously the movies are very much like what was fun about those movies, we talked about it before, is just some supernatural brute slaughtering no-name camp counselors, you know what I mean, like, and this might be a little different. It seems like it's going to be a little different. So, if they have to kind of like use that property for the house, the show is really going to have some meat to it. Like if it's like a character driven show and Jason just happens to be a part of it, like I worry that it's not necessarily going to have the same gravitas that the movies do. So I don't know. The movies kind of just lend themselves to a campy haunted house.
So yeah, I think I might be in one case jumping the gun because of the series, and it might not have any relevancy to the series, that we know of Jason. But I do think that we need that classic slasher fill. Yeah, I know Chainsaw's on an anniversary year this year, but we just had Chainsaw. We've just had Halloween. I think the Nightmare on Elm Street rights issues are probably a little bit trickier than the Jason
I think a few
ones.
of them are.
Yeah, so I think
if
the
you think
Jason
about it.
stuff being at Peacock might be a little bit more obtainable. We just did Chucky, so they're not going to use that. Scream is not going to be available, especially with everything that's going on recently. So what's classic slasher do you really go to? I mean, is it a year we get Hellraiser? I just think that Jason, who's had his history at HHN, can come back, because we haven't had, we had Freddy versus Jason at 25. And then before that, the last time we had a solo Jason house was Carnival of Carnage at 07, I believe.
Yeah.
So like it's been a minute.
Right.
So,
it's been a while.
And I don't know, like I said, if film rights, obviously the lawsuit between the two, whatever, I don't know if those issues have any impact on licensing agreements to get him into the park. It's probably two different things.
I would imagine it's probably no different than anything else. I could see them doing something where, since they have the show, they can snag the rights to the character, and instead of maybe even just calling the house Friday the 13th, they could just call it Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
And have the whole house be based around the lake, and you have Jason in it because they have the rights to the character. I can't imagine there would be a massive fight over it. You know what I mean? Like honestly, if you're whoever owns the rights to that adult Jason character, quote unquote,
yeah,
I can't imagine they're putting up a massive fight to keep Universal from using him in a theme park. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So
it's not
I think
like
it's
trying to make. Yeah, so I think it's a viable idea, and I think that they do kind of follow trends, and we have had slashers over the last couple of seasons, and that would be like the next logical step would be to bring Jason back, because they haven't done him in a very long time.
Yeah, and again, it's just it's a guess, but it's a logical guess. There's no reasons.
Yeah, I mean,
we have it behind it.
We're not like fortune tellers or anything over here. We like to think that we are, but we're not. We can't actually see the future.
We'll find out in 7 months how wrong we were.
Okay.
But yeah, that's sort of my reasoning behind that. Also, I don't remember all the code names, but I do remember that s'mores is a house code name for this year.
Yeah,
and where do you make s'mores? When you're camping
at a campfire.
So if we're going to another campground setting, much like we did last year, that could be derived from that to an extent. So I think that's all I got on the Friday 13th potential. Did you have anything else on that one? But I think I kind of hit all my points.
No, I think you kind of covered everything, and I've got a cattail in front of my face.
Is that a cattail? Okay, I was saying, what the fuck is on your chin?
that is a cattail. I think I just breathed in some.
That's a whole cat right there. I was like, what the fuck is that? It's a weird microphone right there.
Hi, asshole. Yeah, stupid.
I was like,
cat. Go.
I thought that was a new microphone that you got.
No, that was an actual physical cat. Just leaps into my lap.
But yeah, I put that up at that B location, which is where Exorcist was. That puts it into a sound stage, and it gives you plenty of queue line. But do you want to tackle C, the next item on our list? And I think this is probably both of ours most confident.
Well, I would assume so. And I actually haven't even seen this yet. I still haven't sat down and watched it. I need, like I said, I need to get Peacock again. I deleted it because everything's expensive, but either way, I'll have to probably steal it from somebody, or
I'll steal Jimmy's password.
Sorry, I should borrow it from somebody.
And I'm totally going to pay for it.
Yeah, I'm totally going to pay for it. Yeah, so it's Five Nights at Freddy's. I think that out of everything on the list, everybody kind of agrees that this is going to happen. But it's just a matter of when do they announce it, I guess. Yeah. Again, I haven't seen the movie, but I know enough about the video game to know that it lends itself to a haunted house. Probably better than a lot of their more recent stuff that they've released on their Peacock streaming their service. So I mean, I don't know how else, I don't know how much more else you want. I mean, a bunch of walking animatronic animals that are terrifying, and I mean, the story is kind of hokey, but you don't really need to translate this particular story directly using the house because everybody kind of knows what's going on. Plus, it's the characters themselves are effective enough that people will be excited for it. I think that Universal will be able to find a way to really bring these animatronics to life, even though they'll be costumed characters. Like they'll do a really good job of making it look like the movie. And even though I'm not a massive fan of the franchise, I am excited to see what they can do with it in a real life setting. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for this. If this definitely were to happen, which I think we both kind of agree that I would say that I'm almost 90% sure this is going to happen. I would be surprised if it doesn't.
I agree. That would be my biggest shock. Is if it's
if it's not a thing, and that's why I'm surprised they haven't announced it yet. Like I feel like it was one of those ones that's like the writing's on the wall. Like it's like the movie came out last year. It was a pretty big hit. People love the video game. You just did The Last of Us, so we know you have a partnership with PlayStation, even though this isn't really a PlayStation game, but people have now seen that you can translate a video game to a haunted house. So I don't see why they wouldn't do it. So yeah, I don't know. You've seen the movie, so I mean, again, you probably could break down kind of what you think is going to be in the house, but I could totally see this happening.
Yeah, I did see the movie. I think I was disappointed in it. I didn't love it. I think the idea is a lot better than how they executed it. I think this movie could have been done a lot better. I don't know. The story fell flat. The acting was and the animatronics and like the characters are really what saved it for me. But I do think this still would be a great house. I mean, the atmosphere is there. The little song that they got, that creepy talking in your sleep kind of song where it's like, I hear the secrets that you keep. It's just like, that's a cool Q line song that's going to be there. I think the writing's on the wall, right? With all the Peacock advertising they did for this. It doesn't matter how well or how poorly received this movie was. It's that never plays a factor in these decisions. It's they've done bad movies before. It doesn't matter. It's what makes the money.
And right, and this house will be just like The Last of Us. This will be the house that has a 2-hour wait on a regular busy night. Like, so regardless of how the movie performed, obviously we're not good barometers of whether or not something's popular, to be honest with you, because I was convinced The Last of Us was not going to be that long of a wait, and it consistently was over an hour and a half every single night. So so clearly we do not speak for the masses. So I think this will definitely bring in the crowds. And I can see why. I think this one definitely this is a much better idea than something like The Last of Us. Not saying that The Last of Us was a bad property, because we spoke about it at length. That we thought the show is really good, the game is really good, it's really well acted, it's a really well crafted story. Five Nights at Freddy is none of that, but I think the nature of what it is something that lends itself to a house so much better. So this will be popular. I don't know. I think you kind of broke it down as best as you could. So I think this is the one we're most confident in. So the others are kind of just like a wish list. This is like one we actually speculate that will be there.
Yeah, these are a couple of these are.
And was one of the code names Dough?
Pie, so like pizza pie, maybe.
Pizza pie. I mean, yeah. So
it could be. It's like these code names are like.
I know
some of them are so obvious,
right?
But they always do have some sort of meaning to the house it represents. But we're not going to know that until after. This could mean a billion other things. We're just kind of saying it could. But it is fun. It's fun to guess because, I went through the previous code names last week with Jamie, and Last of Us was pear because Joel and Ellie are a pair. Chucky was orange because his hair is orange. Like, it's just there are obvious ones, but then there's some like really obscure ones. Like Darkest Deal was tomato because they throw tomatoes on the stage.
Yeah,
so
it's a very they do a really good job of hiding it.
Yeah, so they all do tie in. They all do mean something. It's just a matter of if we can sniff it out or not. And maybe we'll get one out of these 10 right. But we have that at C location. That is where Stranger Things was. That's where the kind of one of those headline houses goes. It's up in one of the sound stages, and it's got plenty of queue line. Moving along to D. This is where we estimate or guess Holidays in Hell. Now, Holidays in Hell is a property that's been used before, but on the West Coast. This is a Hollywood original. It was used in 2019 and 2023. This is kind of like a sort of, we talked about Slaughter Cinema being a compilation house. This is sort of a compilation house as well, where it takes you through all the different holidays. They go through New Year's Day, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, Easter, 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas. They do all kinds of stuff. So every holiday, pretty much. I don't know if this was rumored or not at any point. I think we kind of thought it was.
I don't know if it was ever like truly speculated.
No,
because I know we talked about it a little bit, but I think it was more of like a wish list type of thing.
Yeah, I know there was an original Krampus on the first spec map last year.
See that too, yeah.
So I think that kind of got the gears turning a little bit, but this would just be a fun one. We haven't really pulled a original from Hollywood, but they've pulled originals from us. They've used Scarecrow in recent years, and that's a trend that I would like to see. Now, I know Hollywood's might not have as, I hate to put us on that high pedestal, but they don't have as many good originals as us. So like the trade-off isn't always as fair, which it doesn't have to be. Right. But they can take some of ours. I'd like to take some of theirs and see our version of it. Holidays in Hell. This is one of Jamie's picks. She's really excited for it, especially if there's any sort of tie-in with this and HR Blood and Guts. I know that would be right up her alley. So I don't know. I think it is. I think it would be either this year or next year that we do get some sort of original from Hollywood, some sort of collaborative piece that we can share. I know we've been rumored in the past to get Curse of Pandora's Box, which is one of their Greek mythology style originals. I think that fell through. So this one would be a really fun one to get. The only thing that I don't know is if they would take it or if they would just kind of make their own version with HR Blood and Guts, or if they would just kind of leave him out of it and do their own thing completely. But yeah, I'd be very intrigued for this. We put this up at that D location, which is where they had what was on the left, Dueling Dragons. So again, I feel like that D and E right next to the tribute store is typically where they tuck those originals that are pretty well renowned. That's where we had Chupacabra and Dead Man's 2 years ago. This year was Yeti and Dueling Dragons. They kind of do a really back-to-back originals in that corner. So I'd be excited to see this. Also for code names, one was Cookie. So we got talking like you leave out Milk and Cookie for Santa. Right. It could lead you to a Krampus or a holiday style house. And that's kind of where we landed on. Any thoughts on this? I wish I had watched walkthroughs of this house. I haven't. I just kind of, the title tells you everything you need to know though, really.
Yeah. It's another compilation house, but this one's more original, I guess. Like it's not based on anything in particular other than the holiday itself and the legend of the holiday. And I would be okay with it just being like, we're just gonna port it over from Hollywood, just do the same thing but do it in Orlando this time, because I think sometimes that works. Like if you give us something that Hollywood did before, most of your event goers in Orlando don't go to Hollywood every year. Like not everybody does both coasts. So it's not like you're, really reusing anything other than, hey, this was over there last year. Now it's over here. We felt like we wanted like both coasts to experience it. So yeah, I love weird takes on different legends. So I always love, like, I love holiday-based horror movies.
Yeah.
Even regardless of how cheesy they are, I do love quite a number of them. I haven't watched Thanksgiving yet either, and I do want to watch that.
I haven't either. I need to go check it out.
I've heard it's really good. Mixed things. I've heard good things and bad things, but it kind of comes with the territory.
I've heard really good things, and I've been kicking myself that I haven't. We've talked obviously about how busy we've been with everything, and I just haven't been able to make it
incredibly hard to see movies. I do need to invest in the AMC app again so I can start going to the theater again, but I do need to watch that. So
I am invested, and I have not gone to the movies in a little bit, so I need to get back on that. Do you want to move along to our next property? Because I think we've kind of summed up as much as we could for Holidays in Hell.
Just to wrap that up, Holidays in Hell, pretty self-explanatory. So I think we both would like to see this. So good idea, Jamie. So we're going to E, and this is also a returning property, we'll call it. Not a sequel by any means, but one of the scare zones to house scenarios. So we're going to go at Sweet's Revenge as a house this time and not a scare zone. Could probably change the name. Like you could almost give it some sort of name that's relative to Sweet Revenge, but maybe a little different. We've talked about this in the past too, that we really think this should come back as a house at some point, because you could do a whole house based on like the factory, the candy factory, and actually kind of get into Sweet's, like his actual like
the backstory, and
and make it kind of like a warped Wonka, even though Wonka's already kind of warped. But like you could kind of like play off of that movie and that story and do your own thing with it, and kind of break out the house in that way, and bring back some of the stuff we saw in the scare zones. So some of the scare actors, you could bring those back. You could bring those characters back, put them in the house. I would love to see like a more fleshed out like downtown scene, kind of like what the scare zone was, but like give it more story, and then instead of just people walking around. So that would be really cool. And this one would definitely benefit from being in a soundstage. So I think that's where we're sticking E. I think that's in that soundstage area
where Yeti was.
Right. So this is one of the ones where you kind of need to put it in a soundstage. It really won't work in a tent. But yeah, this is like a scare zone, a recent scare zone that I think deserves a more fleshed out, attraction, or a more fleshed out idea.
Yeah, I think everybody's thinking it. I think it's a little too obvious because all of the code names are like desserts, that it's a sweets year. But that's what we're working with right now. We're just going to take what we have and we're working with it. So it would make sense. I think this would be as close to a Halloween 3 season of the Witch House we'll ever get. Just because, unfortunately, we can have that factory aesthetic. We can have the whole, churning the children into these weird, mindless zombie kind of things with the candy. You can have Major Sweets and Miss Treats sort of being your icons of the event and kind of leading it in. And if you want to tie all these scare zones into something like that, I mean, if it would probably get a little redundant, but if each scare zone was like some different candy gone bad or something like that, you could really make up some aesthetics, or some weird fucked up Candyland kind of thing would be really fun. I don't know. I think that this property is one of these scare zone properties of the past that has me the most intrigued about it being called up to the big league, so to speak, in house format. But I would love to see this. The characters, like you said, were all really fun. The aesthetic was amazing. The little town center was fun, but I would love this to be in the factory, Willy Wonka demented, and then maybe the ending is them winning and their candy being spread across the world or the country, and then the scare zones are tied into this house with that weird Candyland aesthetic of like candy taking over these certain areas of the land and having it be different mutated things and stuff like that. So I'm down. I'm on board for Sweet Revenge. We're taking 10 shots at the dark, and this is just one of them. But the logic is there. I think this would be really fun. And again, back-to-back years of these new, let's call it icons. If you give them the icon year, I think you keep building that roster of icons until 35. And then you can pull your trigger on that Jack versus Oddfellow and use your new icons versus your old icons thing at 35 as an anniversary year. So use this year and use next year to get another new icon. And then you've got Oddfellow, Pumpkin Lord, Major Sweets Mistreats, which is a nice little combo of of like Lady Luck and stuff like, they can kind of compare up that way. And then whatever you get next year as an icon will sort of be a team up of sorts, I'd say. But yeah, no, that's what I have for Sweet Revenge. Did you have anything else for Sweet Revenge before we move on to our next property?
Nope, you kind of covered everything else I didn't cover.
Alrighty, so moving on to location F. F for family, which is the Fast and Furious location, because when you're here, your family.
I see what you did there.
See, a little Olive Garden mixed up with Fast and Furious, little Dom Toretto. This is where we have, I think, one of the more controversial picks, and that is Terrifier. I think that with the third movie coming out, I think with the recent comments that Damien Leone had stated that it would be, I don't know the exact wording, I don't have it in front of me, but he would like to expand Terrifier into other realms, and he specifically mentioned Halloween Horror Nights, and he did say that they have been in talks at some point. Now, we don't know if these are merely talks from his side to their side, from their side to his side, were these talks 7 years, or 6 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever that first one came out or whatever, or are they actual recent talks? We do not know, but he has stated that there were talks at one point or another. Now, I get it. The first movie is covered in questionable moments. What horror movies aren't? We had House of a Thousand Corpses at the event. There's some pretty messed up stuff in that movie, and they pulled it off. Now, obviously, you don't have to do beat for beat what is in Terrifier. I wouldn't expect us to be sawing a naked girl in half. But there are aspects of these movies, 1 and 2, that you could use. And I would call this Damien Leone's Terrifier. I wouldn't quantify it or limit it to be Terrifier 1. I wouldn't limit it to be Terrifier 2. And that's why I put it in that Fast and the Furious location, because you can use that split. I think an Art the Clown's character would be really cool in that little area, walking, in the gap area. You could use that almost in that dreamlike state of when he was in Terrifier 2 with it was like the commercial with like a swing set and stuff like that. You could put a little swing set location out there and have Art the Clown with the like food truck, or you could just like build a fake food truck and have him in it there.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about height at that point. You're not restricted. You're in open space. But I think it is popular enough. I get it. I get all the potential problems that it persists, but again, it's a horror movie. That's what this genre is built on. It's built on shock and awe to an extent. I don't think it's as bad as some of the other stuff. I think Hostel was more like reaching for shock and awe than this was. We had Saw at the event, so these things can be adapted and done properly. It doesn't have to be beat for beat, and you don't have to kind of get bogged down by the bad, so to speak. But what are your thoughts on Terrifier?
Yeah, I just don't think it's. I mean, I don't think it's popular enough. That's the only thing. I think it's still kind of niche for the general public. Because I would wager a guess that the majority of the normal crowd that comes to Horror Nights, if you ask them if they asked them if they had ever seen Terrifier, they may look at you like, what, and not know what you're talking about. I think it's a movie that for people like us who live and breathe this genre and this world, we'd be super stoked on it, but I don't know if your general, mom and pop Smith going to Horror Nights with their kids, that they're going to be super wild about a Terrifier house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not so much that they know what it is and they're like, oh, that movie's disgusting. We're not going to see that. We're not going to go through this. It's just they're going to go through it and not know what it is. And they're just going to be like, this is weird. Granted, the Art the Clown character is terrifying. Like he's
pretty iconic.
One of the more horrifying slasher characters, and in recent memory, anyways, that he would work. but again, I just don't know if is it worth it to do it because you might excite a small percentage of the fan base. I don't know. That's just me. I don't know. I mean, I obviously would like to see it just from my own personal enjoyment, but I can understand why it wouldn't happen either, and not just because the movie is controversially violent. So
yeah, I don't. That is a good point with the popularity. I don't know, how crazy popular it is
right,
outside of our world. I think more people might know the picture of Art the Clown before they know his name or what movie he's from.
right.
So I'd be interested to see, just how much of a draw that would be. But it would be, I would assume, a cheap IP. I don't think
Yeah,
it
I
would
can't
cost an arm
imagine
and a
it's
leg.
very expensive to get him. Plus, it
Yeah,
sounds like
so
Leon kind of already wants to do
wants
it
it.
anyways. So it's like he may just be like, "Here, use them. I don't care."
And that's
That's
my thing
sweet.
too, is like, if it comes to like, well, notes, he doesn't strike me as the person to say, well, no, you have to have this scene or else you don't get my property. He's probably like, pick whatever you want and just use it. Like, just get it
Yeah,
in there. I don't care what, I don't care if you snip everything and just use Art the Clown in the settings, just please take it, use it, get us that publicity. But
right.
time will tell. I think that's a little bit of a gamble. Well, these are all gambles on our part, but I do, for an IP. I think that's a little bit of a gamble. But I'm willing to put it in that top 10 likely for this year at this point.
I'm not
Uh,
going to argue with you.
yeah. Want to move along to the next one because I just changed this one pretty last minute. I had a different thing
Yeah.
on there, and I'll tell you my two reasons behind it.
So this actually, I think this is a Universal movie, isn't it?
I'm not sure, but I can tell you that it has been used in the past at Horror Nights.
Right. So
And it
it's
won't be
probably
like a beat for beat. It'll be kind of a play on it.
yeah, and it's probably
It's yeah.
public domain at this point, anyways, or close to it. But yeah, it's The Wizard of Oz.
Mhm.
Which in its own right is a terrifying movie if you think about it.
Yeah, just
The
the
movie's
normal
very
version.
scary. The flying evil monkeys or whatever they are horrifying. The Wicked Witch of the West is horrifying. Um, so it kind of the story itself kind of lends itself to a house, kind of like some of the other options we've put on here. Plus, if you think about it, you could almost do like a take on The Darkest Deal, which The Darkest Deal was based on a legend or a story, not necessarily a specific movie in general. But this one, kind of the same idea, base it on the idea of the Wizard of Oz, but at the same time, kind of do your own thing with it. It'd be one of those. It'd be one of those like IPs that's like sort of IP, sort of
Yeah,
original, and kind of meld the two together.
their own
So
variation.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's so many things you could do with it. You know, and just like maybe turn it on its head, in a way. Like take the story you know and love, and then like add a lot of horrific elements to it.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, this has been used in the past in their Scary Tales iterations. So it was in Deadly Ever After in 18, Scary Tales Steampunk 15. It was in 08, 2001, 2002 when they did the first iterations of Scary Tales. So it's a property that has been there. The one thing that led me to this was my two clues to the code names. One of the code names is Cobbler. Now, the two ways I got there, this is the only one that I have two clues hinting towards the same thing, is uh, yellow brick road, cobble, kind of like a cobblestone pathway. And cobbler is also a shoemaker, which I mentioned last time, and I didn't exactly know how it would fit, but the ruby red slippers as kind of the reference to shoes. I think it's kind of a vague enough guess to kind of draw you off the scent of what it's actually meaning. So I didn't want to put just Scary Tales because I don't know if they would do a Scary Tales and a Slaughter Cinema kind of compilation-y sequel-y thing, but if they focused heavily on like just Land of Oz or Oz and Powerful or some sort of thing, like you mentioned Darkest Deal, it took that Devil Went Down to Georgia story used it, didn't call it that. You knew, but they didn't say it. They could do something along the lines of this, where the Wizard of Oz isn't really, it plays a factor in the story overall, but the aesthetics of this can be played on without the Wizard of Oz. You can name this some other ridiculous thing that just kind of pulls from the source material itself.
It is distributed by Warner Brothers, so maybe they do have some sort of rights, or they can get a hold of some sort of rights for it. So I think it's something they could pull off if they wanted to.
Yeah. So I don't know. We put this at the G location. Let me pull that up because I'm already losing track.
It's one of the tents. I think
that's the tent one that enters by the Fear Factor stage. So that was Dr. Oddfellows last year. So good little tent house. You don't need crazy high ceilings for this thing. You can make do. And we've seen them really play with the eye and stuff like Puppet Theater before, where height didn't even seem like a factor. Same thing with Descendants.
Right.
So you can make some short stuff with mirrors look a lot taller. So I don't know. I think that would be a fun little take, something sort of new, something sort of old, and a fresh spin on it. But that's kind of how I got there. Now, the other what I took off and replaced it with was just a Western original. I will throw it out there. I do think it's time for a Western Horror Nights house back here, but I didn't have any connections whatsoever. That was even more of a shot in the dark than the others because I just want a Western house. But I figured Wizard of Oz, I at least have 2 connections to a code name. I don't know if they fit. I don't, we'll see. Time will tell. Moving along to H. H is another tent house. This is where Darkest Deal was. And for this one, this one's another vague original because I know that there's going to be originals that aren't sequels, that aren't IPs. So for this one, I just put Greek mythology original. Now we've had in the past, talks of, the Poseidon, or not Poseidon, Pandora's Box coming from Hollywood as sort of their Greek mythology take, but also Poseidon's Fury. A lot of people are, as we do, they look at Horror Nights as something that likes to do trends. They like to have continuations. They like to have, they did Walking Dead forever. They do Blumhouse forever. They do, this and that and the other thing. And they kind of do go back to the same well at times. They did Halloween every other year for 6 years, I think it was. So Greek mythology original could be a Poseidon's Fury. Maybe that's something they want to lean into, is that defunct retro, park original. They have some sort of, I don't want to say IP, but they have a story already built in their own lore that they could pull from. I don't know if it would be, I don't think it would be anything that was, you're not going to get a Darkon or whatever his name is, battle with the water vortex in a house. But
I mean, if you're going to do it, why not?
But I do think that maybe they get some sort of Greek mythology that would be fun. Play with the whole gods style of it. But I don't know. What do you think? I know these last couple have been more shots in the dark than anything.
No, but I mean, Greek mythology would be a fun new avenue to go down. I mean, they haven't really done a whole lot of it. I think that what was the one with the? Oh my goodness! It was like a Roman style house. It was like
Nightingale's Blood Pit.
Nightingales. So they've kind of done things similar to it. So I could see them doing something Greek mythological. I don't know if it'll necessarily be Poseidon's Fury, but it would be.
That's why
I mean, they could call back to it. I think that would be kind of fun, especially considering that, once they said it was closing, everybody was like, "Oh no, that's like my favorite thing ever." And it's like, no, it's not.
Sold out every single day.
Stop. You're just sad because they're closing something that's been there and no one cared about it while it was just stewing away.
It was a walk on. Leave me, come on.
It wasn't that good. Everybody relax.
It was such a, I love it. But it was not
bad.
Good.
It was right. Yeah, it was so bad. It was good. Right.
Well, it was like walking into a time capsule, right? You get those super shitty, early 90s graphics, water projection.
I don't know if it was even a thing prior to moving to Florida. I don't think it was a thing. The last time I had been to Universal, I think it wasn't even, because Islands wasn't open. There was no Islands when we went for that one time. So going back as a resident, as a Universal pass holder, I did it recently. So it was like, I didn't really have that nostalgia for it. So I don't really know what it was like 20 years ago when the park opened, but I don't know. Either way, I
know what it's like in 2022, and it was not holding up.
Exactly. It did not hold up. But they have already kind of set a precedent now that they're willing to do old attractions as houses. I mean, they did it last year, and it worked for most people, just not some people on this podcast. So I can't imagine why it wouldn't be possible that they do a Poseidon's Fury Greek mythology house. I just think it would be better if it was more just not generic, but more specific, just Greek mythology. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I same boat. It's it's not a guarantee by any means, but it's worth taking a shot on for sure. Do you want to tap into
the second to last one?
Yep, second to last one.
So this one, I think, is based on the newish movie coming out soon, right? That's kind of where you're going with this.
Kind of,
well, I don't even know what it is, but either way, it's Silent Hill. Massive fan of this franchise, both the video game and the movies that have come out. I mean, they're not great, but the first one I thought was pretty good. First movie, I mean. Again, kind of like we talked about with Five Nights at Freddy's, they now have an existing relationship with at least PlayStation, and this is a PlayStation game. So I could see this being following the trend of, hey, we started doing this, so we're going to do a house that's similar to it every single year. So them doing a video game adaptation, movie adaptation house, I think this kind of just follows that next evolution in that realm. Plus, with I think like you were going to say, there is a movie coming out soon, or a relatively soon, that's in the Silent Hill universe. So could they make this a house? Yeah, definitely. I think this would be more of a kind of like Last of Us. It's based more on the game than anything. And they can kind of say, let's take characters and themes and settings from various Silent Hill games instead of trying to follow like one specific storyline, and just kind of have, the big characters that you remember, like the nurses and the Pyramid Head and a few other things that kind of pop up throughout the series. So yeah, and this is actually, more than The Last of Us, would be a video game property that I would be pretty excited for, if not Fallout. Just saying.
Yeah. There is a movie, Return to Silent Hill. It's upcoming. It comes out this year. I don't know when. But they did Silent Hill in the past. They did it at HHN33, and it was called Welcome to Silent. Yeah, so it was called Welcome to Silent Hill. So Return to Silent Hill is kind of very fitting. It was back then. I think it was officially the first house to be based on a video game, but it was kind of like that blend of a little bit of both, which is what I think this would be as well. It's sort of like you mentioned, Last of Us. It was more of the name itself than it is whichever property you want to use it on. People aren't going to come. You're not going to draw more people to a Silent Hill house by naming it Silent Hill 2 versus 3. If you just call it Silent Hill, people are going to show up. It doesn't matter.
Right.
You're here for it, and you know what to expect. So, again, upcoming releases don't necessarily determine if a house is coming. Anniversaries don't necessarily determine if a house is coming, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it's an indicator. So we'd be silly to just guess random properties that have zero ties into that. So with that being said, I think Silent Hill, if they announced Silent Hill, I would not be surprised. And that's kind of what all of these are. These are all, if they came out, I wouldn't be surprised, is the way I'm looking at it.
Right. And I agree with that. I think this is one of those ones that if it doesn't happen, all right, well, it was a good guess. But if it does happen, okay, well, it makes sense that they would do it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my take on Silent Hill. We have this actually in the same location that Last of Us was in as well, in that I location. So entering to the right of the MIB area, but going into one of the back parade warehouses. And I will finish this whole map discussion off with location J, which is where Monsters was last year, which is where we're going to put Monsters again this year. Surprise, surprise. We did not
probably the
exclude the
guess
monsters
on the map, or guess.
Yeah, we did not. Map. Yeah, we did not exclude the monsters from this property. Now it is interesting. This will be the last HHN event before they open Epic Universe, because it'll open springtime of supposedly spring of 25. So with this wrapping up, it'll kind of lead us right towards that. And to nobody's surprise, we have included Creature from the Black Lagoon because he's just been vacant. He's just been missing. I think it's time for the call up. They did pretty much every other monster under the sun. Yep. I do not think it will be a solo creature house. They've shown no precedent of doing a solo house.
Nope.
If they didn't do a solo mummy house or a solo Dracula house, I do not think they're going to take a solo creature house. So with that, I paired it with Frankenstein because they are both sort of creatures, both sort of, green, lovable creature guys. And Frankenstein being sort of one of the, if not the most popular, one of the most popular monsters, most recognizable monsters, which will push people towards the Epic universe. Now, the other flip to this coin is maybe they say just do another compilation house showcasing all the monsters we're going to have at Epic and use the land as sort of the name for the house and really use this almost as a preview of things to come at the new park. But I'm just going to stick with the original, what we have on the map, Creature and Frankenstein. Now we know they love to throw thirds in there for no reason. So, maybe they throw a Wolfman or somebody in there because they do have a Wolfman movie coming out this year as well. But I'm going to stick with those two for now. Again, like we said, plenty of times already on this podcast, anniversaries and future movies have no direct correlation, but it is going to be Creature's 70th anniversary this year.
Ooh.
I think 1954.
Wow. Yeah, that would make sense. Right. Yeah, he was one of the last. I think he was one of the last real Universal monsters. So,
and last year was like what, Hunchback's 100th anniversary, and they used him. So there is a direct correlation right there.
There's correlation there, and I think that they follow the correlation more than we like to admit. So I could totally see it happening. I mean, Creature, come on. How are you going to do like monsters over again and not do Creature outside of having him as like an Easter egg in, I think it was the Bride House that he was an Easter egg in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, how do you not have him as an actual creature?
It's only a matter.
Come on, guys. And actually, it's going to be Creature and Dr. Frankenstein, not the monster.
Dr. Frankenstein.
It's going to be Dr. Frankenstein hunting the creature. That's what it's going to be.
Well, that would be cool to have.
That would be awesome.
The Frankenstein monster and Dr. Frankenstein, and Dr. Frankenstein's trying to catch like Creature to like operate on. Yeah, and that's why Frankenstein got his green color.
Yeah, Universal, hire us. Come on.
He stole the skin.
You need fighters. Come on.
He took the pigments of the skin of the creature, and that's why Frankenstein is green now.
Hey, I'm telling you, we could write this stuff, man.
Right? If you gave us more than 10 minutes to prep, we'll get more in depth than what we just got now. But we prepped this,
and that was off the top because I didn't think about this at all prior to starting.
I'm not going to give you the good stuff for free, Universal. Come on. I'd be an idiot to do that. Complete idiot. But yeah, so that is what we're calling our guess map for 33. These are all realistic or semi-realistic propositions to have at this event. So let me just quickly go through our list again. We have Slaughter Cinema Part 2, Friday the 13th, Five Nights at Freddy's, Holidays in Hell, Sweet Revenge, Terrifier, The Wizard of Oz, a Greek mythology original house, Silent Hill, and then Universal Monsters, Creatures of the Black Lagoon, and Frankenstein. Do you want to take a guess at how many of these will be correct, if any?
One.
Being Five Nights at Freddy's.
One single one of these will definitely be right, and it's Five Nights at Freddy's.
I'm going to give us 1.5 because I think Monsters is good.
All right. So that's true. I didn't think of that. Yeah, Monsters did. Specifically Creature, probably. Yeah, I guess 1.5 would make sense.
Yeah, I think 1.5 is a good over/under. But man, if we got more than that, I'd be very impressed. And I'm going to be calling back to this episode in about 8
bookmark
months.
this episode because we'll come back and listen to it in August, and we'll find out if we were right or not.
We'll do a once all the releases come back, we will revisit this episode. We'll revisit this map, and we will point out just how wrong or right we were. And I'd be very curious to see. And we won't really know the code names or the code name explanations until after we do the Unmasking the Horror Tour. Usually that's when that information starts to come on out. But I'm really interested to see how our takes hold up. But yeah, that's our guess map for HHN33. So I guess before we sign off, it's been a little bit. Have you watched any horror movies of the week as of late or recently? Anything good that stood out? Because I'm trying to think of something, but my last 3 weeks have just been a complete blur between planning vacations, doing Christmas, planning video shoots, planning photography shoots. I'm all over the place right now.
I don't think I've watched anything specifically horror related in the 2 weeks that I've been MIA. So I don't. I mean, obviously, my What to Watch Wednesday would be a good example. I did watch that recently, I think, which was the Belko Experiment. It's a little goofy movie, very goofy premise, but it is pretty fun.
Horror Office Space,
little cathartic, but it's a pretty good movie. But yeah, I haven't watched anything like recently that I would be like, hey, check this out. So
yeah, what I did put on my What to Watch Wednesday a couple weeks ago is something that I actually just went to Target to go see if they still have the DVD of, but they do not. So I'm going to probably buy it online. And that's Talk to Me. I'm probably going to purchase it
yet.
It's so good, but I'm probably going to purchase it. And then it will be released on streaming a week later because that's just how I roll. I wait forever for the movie to come out on streaming. It doesn't. I get very impatient. I spend $20 on it, and then I open up HBO Max in 2 days, and what do you know? Talk to Me is now on the streaming.
Right.
But yeah, very good. Just a very good overall thriller movie that I really enjoyed. But yeah, that's that. We have Shudder Sundays. I know we said we were going to do it last week, but again, I got so busy with some friends in town, and we're going to do our best to get it out this Sunday. But again, I have all my camera equipment kind of packed up because I'm shooting a wedding on Sunday or Saturday. So if we do get to it, we're planning on doing Destroy All Neighbors, which is a new movie that actually comes out tomorrow. So I don't know much about it. I saw the little trailers and the funny posters. I don't know if he's in it or not, but I want to say Nick Frost is in it. But overall, it looks like a really funny schlocky movie, but it doesn't come out till tomorrow. So we're going to try our best to get it out to you, but we are very, very busy. Hopefully that slows down at some point, but we will get that Shutter Sundays back up for you because I really enjoyed doing those as well. Any final thoughts, Seamus, before we get the fuck on out of here?
Nope. Other than hi, I'm back. It's just been a while.
He's back. I just waited for the real American music to come on for the entrance.
He looks awful, by the way. I don't know if you've seen pictures of Hulk Hogan recently. That dude, life has hit that man hard.
Can we change one of our houses to the Hulk Hogan Beach Shop house?
Between him and Ric Flair, I don't know which one looks worse.
Ooh, probably Ric Flair.
Well, yeah. So not to digress, but he was on AEW last night, and I was like, man, he looks rough, and it was like, it's got to be in his mid 80s. No, he's 72. I'm like, dude, he looks awful for 72. But then again, I guess a lifetime of wrestling will do that to you, won't it?
A lifetime of wrestling, drugs, alcohol.
He probably was a party hardy. So.
Oh yeah. He's the jet flying, limousine driving, wheeling, dealing, whatever he calls himself. All right. Well, that wraps us up for our Guess Map episode. Until next time, this is Nick.
And this is Seamus.
Happy haunts.